Okay, we're still a couple of seconds early, but since we're going to start back where we were before, I think it'll be okay. So I had this picture, and I was asking, is that an outcome of preference? And we also talked about what I call it an externality. If this person used healthcare and you were forced to pay for the healthcare, and I was going towards, yeah, I guess I would, but it's not my favorite example of an externality. What I'm really interested in is preference. Do all people have meaningful preferences? I dragged you through a couple where, is this loud enough? Can you hear it? Okay, because it won't come through on the tape if it's not. So as long as it's okay. So I dragged you through a couple examples. I mean, one example is a person who gets really, really large. Are you so sure they have preferences over food and they're doing what I say? I could choose to eat this or I could choose to eat that. I'm really in control here. And when this happens to me and I got really, really large, it's all in my head and I should be able to make other choices. And the other choices are feasible. Right? It's always feasible to eat less. It's just over a long number of years, and a lot of people I've known really well who'd like to eat less, most of them don't seem to be able to do it. So I'm a little skeptical that my model of people have preferences, they have sets where they can choose different things. If you see them do one thing and not the other, and they can do both, obviously they prefer the thing they did. All right, and that's my economist story. But if you were in public health, would that be something you would say? Is anyone here interested in public health? Well, gotta be a few. Would you ever say that? No. You would take me out in the hall and say, that is someone we need to help, and you are not helping with your attitude. Now, calm it down, mister, right? You're giving me a good talking to, would you not? Yes, she would. Of course she would. Because she wants her patient to live. And I want to say, well, it's just choice. And those things are pretty much at odds. Right? So maybe it's not a good paradigm for you to take back to public health with you all the time. You shouldn't forget it either. But it's not the dominant paradigm in the public health world, that the reason why you're sick is because you made bad choices. Well, that may be true, but if it's really like I say, and you could do this and you could do that, and you chose the bad choice, and it was your preferences, then there's no room for public health or physicians or anything, right? Well, why would I want to change the choice you make? So the helping professions are not going to find my attitude here helpful. On the other hand, you shouldn't forget. So you got to do a balancing act. I know that's hard. What about people with severe mental disorders? I mean, surely you're not going to take my model and use it on them, are you? Is there anyone crazy enough to do that? None of you are crazy enough to do that, right? So you see somebody and they have a severe mental disorder, you're not going to say, oh, but they chose to run in the middle of the street because they thought the bus was a dinosaur. You're not going to say stuff like that, are you? Anybody going to do that? Okay, so there are limits to this model and where it's usable. You certainly don't want to use it for people with severe mental disorder. I'm not sure it's a good thing to use for somebody who is morbidly obese. Right? I just don't think those are good places to think about it as choice. I don't think it's going to help you to think about it that way. But if you look at economists as a group, we are much more likely to say choice rather than illness. And maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but we really would describe somebody decides not to get insurance and instead get the bigger car as a choice. And what's different about us than others is we might well say they made their choice and now they got sick and they didn't buy insurance, so they're going to be miserable. What do you want from me? Well, that's pretty hard, isn't it not? A little hard and a little cold. But that would be our tendency. So we've exhausted the idea of we have a model, but not all models are great for all situations. And since you're all Cal students, you have some common sense. You'll think about when the model is a good idea and when the model is a bad idea. And we can now move on and deal with the cases in which the model is a good idea. Is that all right? Okay. So we talk about revealed preference. We talk about two choices, A and B. You could perhaps think of them as consumption bundles. Person chose bundle A, not bundle B. But any two choices. The important thing is they could choose A or B. Both are possible for them. They made the choice of A and not the choice of B. And then we are going to say that A is revealed superior to B for them. Right? They could have chosen the other, so it must be that they like A better than they like B. A is preferred to B because we watched them do it. That little piece will build into an entire theory of welfare economics where it will even make sense for me to ask you, how much would you be willing to pay to save another wolf in Yellowstone? So that theory will spill everywhere. Once you accept that idea, called revealed preference, then you are going to end up buying into the idea that I can value things. First, you'll buy into the idea that I can value things by looking at what you chose, and eventually, once I convince you of that, you'll even buy into the idea that you can value things by asking me questions. And that's it. Once you buy that, you're in an economist's world, and there'll be no going back. So you've been warned. That's where you buy in. Let's think about the right and the left. So remember my picture-perfect drug addict? So I stop the addict against her wishes. What do I say? Easiest is I just don't believe it's their preference. I mean, it's not preference. It's something else. Let's move on. That would be the easiest way out, would it not? I could take the economist way out. Their action hurts somebody else. They're not really picture perfect. And so I'm not going to let them hurt the other person, even if it's a revealed preference for them. I could pick the third way out, the John Donne way out. I actually care about them and they're hurting me. Right? So I'm not going to let them do it. I pick any of those three ways out. And that gets me up. And I'm consistent. And I can say, okay, it's nice that you want to shoot up the heroin, but unfortunately, I got home before you did and I flushed it, so you won't be able to do that tonight. Sorry. The right wing might take this point of view. They might say it's their personal responsibility. Remember, personal responsibility is a right-wing code word. Does everybody know that? Do you all know that? Okay, so if you listen to politicians and you hear the word personal responsibility, that is, they're telling you that they are to the right of center. That you did whatever, and the nanny state is not going to save you. That's the concept, the personal responsibility. I tell it this way. When you drive in Nevada, there's speed limits, but there aren't any cops. The way that the speed limit is enforced is that you run off the road and have a horrible wreck, and then luckily for you, the buzzards will indeed circle the wreck, and that tips off the few cops there are that they should come and see if they can pull you out. And that's the concept of personal responsibility, right? You're responsible for your speed. You went too fast. You ran off the road and died. Why should I be trying to make you go slow? It's just your choice. Personal responsibility. A person like that would say, I believe the drug addict has made a choice based on their own preferences, right? Personal responsibility. Doesn't unduly hurt others. She's the picture-perfect addict. And that I should not allow my compassion, because we're compassionate conservatives, I should not allow my compassion to overcome my respect for her choices. That would be a perfect thing for a middle-of-the-road conservative to say. And that would not bother them. They would not deny that they were hurt. right? They'd say, no, this is awful. She really shouldn't be doing that. If only she weren't doing that, we could offer her lots of help, but she doesn't want it, right? And so they're not hard right. She does whatever she does. It's not my problem kind of people. They're not cold. They just think that you make your choices and we have to respect that. So that would be about how I'd split the political spectrum here. Now we're done with all the philosophy I know, so we have to stop, and we can go on to things I know about, which are curves. So let's go to curves. Preferences are assumed to have some reasonable properties. One is more is better. And I'll show you a picture in a second, but I'm talking about bundles. So a bundle that has more of something and not less of anything is the better bundle of the two. The second is transitivity. A better than B better than C, A better than C. That seems pretty reasonable. And the last is I don't allow nonsensical stuff. You can't have A better than B and B better than A. It's irreflexive. So we could build a whole mathematical theory here, and we're not going to. We're just going to work with our axioms and see what we can learn from it. So here's more is better. Here's a bundle. Every bundle in this red area has more wine or more bread or both, right? And none of these bundles have any less bread or any less wine than this one. So our statement is every individual would choose something here rather than something there. If they just had the two bundles, they could just pick one or the other. That's more is better. Remember, it's in a vector sense. There's more bread and more wine, or more correctly, more bread and not less wine. Yeah? So we're comparing two bundles, and one is definitely better than the other if it has more of at least one good and not less of the other. Of course, the blue thing is just the opposite. Everybody agrees that's worse. You're getting less of at least one thing and not more of anything. But look at the question marks. I don't know them. There's nothing that I know from my axioms that tells me whether the dot on that first question mark on the left there is a bundle that is preferred to A or not preferred to A. There could be some people for whom it's preferred to A. There could be some people for whom it's not preferred to A. I just don't know. There's nothing in the axioms to tell me. The major tool we use to analyze choice are indifference curves. Technically, a difference curve is a level set. So if you took, I don't know, Math 53, where do level sets show up? Someone tell me. Where? Level sets? All points that have the same value on a function? Yeah. All right, maybe this is the only place they show up. So think of it in terms of, instead of in a mathematical presentation, think in terms of something you actually know. Here's a topo map of the highest mountain in New York State. It's in the Adirondacks. It's in the Adirondack Forest Preserve, which is in fact a very large wild area, like Yellowstone size large and larger. But it's wet and cold. So here's our mountain. That's the top. Because you well know, as you stay on one of these contours, you'll be on exactly the same altitude. So this is a map, and the contours show all the points that are the same height. So 2 points on the same contour are at the same height. That's the idea of a level set. Here's a level set drawn from an agricultural production function, but it works well for us, and I'll show you why. If you pick the light blue squares, I think these are the light blue, like this. You pick this set of squares. Each one of these squares has, in this case, the same output of corn, because that's what this thing was drawn on, but the same height off the floor. These things down here show all the bundles, all the amount of this good and that good, right, this X and Y, that have the same height. So it's as if you took your surface up here, and then down here on the tabletop, so I got a surface up here, that's what you're looking at, and then I'm looking down at the tabletop for a curve that shows the locus of all points that have the same height off the table. And I've drawn them in, actually, my friend Ethan did this. So that's another example. And these are the level sets, all the points that have the same height. So we're interested in indifference curves. Indifference curves are, let's see if we get it right, I guess we start from the beginning. Two bundles are indifferent if given a choice. One consumer, two bundles. If that consumer says, I will take bundle A or bundle B, I like them exactly the same. Then we say those two bundles are indifferent. You notice it's bolded because that's a question one could ask. One could ask, quickly define 5 items for me. 1, indifference, right? That'd be a kind of a quiz bit you could reasonably ask in a class like this. So either happy. How do I know he's equally, how do I know that he's equally happy and not just doesn't care? Because if I added the tiniest bit to either bundle, then he would want that bundle more than the other one. That's a fact you could prove based upon more is better and transitivity, but we won't for the moment. Let's think of a particular bundle. So you can think of a bundle is a spot in a 2-space where you have wine on one axis and bread on the other, right? So a bundle is just a point in the 2-space. Think of a particular point in the 2-space. Then there's an indifference curve through that point. I will not give you a good proof of that, but as we get a little further along, I'll show you why that's got to be. The indifference curve through A, so if someone said define indifference curve, I would find it easiest to say the indifference curve through bundle A is the set of all bundles that makes the consumer exactly as happy as he'd be with bundle A, right? You could say has the same utility if you like our jargon, but just as happy will work fine. So you can say in plain English here. So now we have the idea of indifference, and we have an indifference curve. We don't know much about it yet, but we got it. Let's think of utility again. If you're looking at my diagram, utility is height, right? How much utility did I get? We think of it as height. Bundles with the same height, bundles on the same level set, bundles on the same indifference curve. What does our theory work with, though? Our theory works only on the indifference curves. I don't actually need to know the level of utility. Look at that. Suppose I took this surface, right? Imagine my hands are the surface. I took the whole surface, and I raised it up to here. But I didn't deform the surface at all. I just jacked it up into the air. Would the indifference curve stay the same? Yes, they would. It's just adding constant to the height. So I don't actually need to know how high it is. I just need to know which points are the same. So although utility is useful to talk about, I don't have any way to measure it. I can't look in her head and find out how many utils is she getting from the classroom right now. Oh my God, the utils are falling. I better do something to wake her up. Right? I can't do that. But I can say, reasonably say, she is happier being in the classroom than pretending she went to the bathroom and going out and having a Coke and coming back in a couple hours. Right? 'Cause she could do that. So I can say something about happier doing this and happier doing that. It's something about indifference or preference, but I can't say how happy. So utility itself I can't measure. The only thing I can see from utility is which bundles are better in that consumer's view than other bundles, which ones are indifferent. That's all I can hope to work with. Now I'm going to show some fundamentals of indifference curves. They slope down, they don't cross, higher indifference curves are better, and what I'm going to leave for your next course, what I do explain in the text if you care, is that I always draw them kind of like crescent moons. So I'm going to the board here, and I'm going to draw an indifference curve, although you'll see them in the next couple slides. And even tells you page 66. So I'm going to draw them looking like this, all right? And there's good reasons for that, and look at page 66 if you care. If not, let's just take it on faith and say it's a beginning class and we take a few things on faith. So let's look. We're doing the last one first. Every point on the higher indifference curve is better. Yeah, all right. Here's a point on the lower indifference curve. I've drawn a square. We know everything in this bounded by this blue set of lines, the blue right angle lines, everything to the up and right of them, like where point B is, every bundle up there is preferred to bundle A because, why? More is better. Okay, so B is surely preferred to A. There's some bundle like that. But what about bundles like C? Are C and B on the same indifference curve? Yes. So C is equivalent to indifferent to B, and B is preferred to A, and I got a little transitivity going on, so C is what to A? And so everything on the higher indifference curve is preferred to everything on the lower indifference curve. Right? So we've used our basics. Now we know that higher up indifference curves are better. What else can we find? Indifference curves don't cross. Tell me about B and C. Which one do I like more and why? I like B or C more? C? How many C's? Okay, someone give me a reason for C, one of you C'ers. Come on, just shout out. Higher. It's more is better, though, right? I would draw a square here, and I'd say, this has got more of both things than this, and so I prefer C. All right? Is C indifferent to A? Is A indifferent to B? Yeah, they're on the same indifference curve, aren't they? Yeah? So do I have a contradiction? C is, by the transitivity, indifferent to B, yet C is better than B. So the indifference curves can't cross. It's an impossible diagram. So indifference curves don't cross. No. Higher indifference curves are better, and they don't cross. So now we know more or less how to draw indifference curves, and I'm going to just take my blackboard here and draw a few. It's got to look like this, right? They all look like there's kind of crescent moons, and they just pile up one on top of another, and as you go up, people are happier. That's what you need to know. So to finish a theory of choice, we have to choose a bundle. We have consumers can choose anything on and technically under their budget constraints. You'll see why that won't happen in a second. And those are the only things they can afford. That was the lecture before. And now we get a picture and we ask, well, which bundle will they choose? And really, I picked all the possible types of bundles. Right? There's a bunch of them. So C and D and E and F. We can eliminate them one at a time, and you'll see what bundle they have to choose. First of all, bundle F. Why did they not choose bundle F? Remember, this is their budget constraint, the blue line. Why say louder? Because they can't afford it, right? It's over the budget constraint. So they can't pick a bundle like F. They don't have to worry about those bundles. What about D? What's wrong with D? They can't afford D. It's under their budget constraint. What will make, yeah, go ahead. So C is on this higher indifference curve. D is on a lower indifference curve. So why would you want D if you could have C? Yeah. So that's gone. What about E? E is exactly on the budget constraint, but they're not going to choose it. Why? It's on the lower indifference curve. And so there's only one possibility. And this is a tangency. Why is it a tangency? Well, if you don't draw it as a tangency, then you can have a point like this. It'll be on a lower indifference curve. You'll always be able to move in. Why is that? That's because of the way I made these things look like small moons, right? Because they look like crescent moons. It's the convexity of the upper contour sets, technically, that's doing that for you. So they're going to choose a point like that. So of the bundles a consumer can afford, the consumer chooses the one the consumer likes most. That's a statement of our theory of choice gotten down to plain, ordinary words with no curlicues. So we got choice will occur where we have the tangency, and we went through all the other points were there. Here I've redrawn a budget constraint, and I've drawn the tangent indifference curve, because the rest don't matter. There's an infinite number of them. I'm not going to draw them all. So I've just drawn the tangent ones, and I asked a couple of questions. The first question is, as usual, one of these axes is wine. Here it's the horizontal one, one's bread. I want to know how much wine and how much bread did they choose. And so it would pay you to do a really fast copy of the diagram onto your notes, mark the tangency with a little blip of some sort, just so you won't miss the point that we're looking for the tangency. Pointers. Okay, I got my red pen. Right, I just marked the tangency. And now I want to know, at the tangent bundle, how much bread and how much wine? Yeah? 2 wines and 4 breads. He's going for 2 wines and 4 breads because he likes things in integers, and when you have a diagram like this, you draw a little dotted line